The purpose of this presentation is to discuss, identify, and understand gender identity and delve into common misconceptions that arise because of misunderstandings that surround it. Our textbook, Psychology Second Edition, defines gender identity as one sense of being male, female, neither of these, both, or another gender. But what exactly does that mean? Uh, People tend to confuse sexual orientation with gender identity based on misconception and biases that exist about sexuality, though they're not the same. New York's Office for the Prevention of Domestic Violence points out that gender identity is a cultural and legal term that stems from society's expectations about different genders and how people should act, dress, speak, and behave. So, whether something is male or female. Um, and gender identities include cisgender, which is where your identity aligns with the sex that was assigned at birth, so be it male or female, as well as transgender, where the identity differs from sex assigned at birth, non-binary, where the identity falls outside the male and female binary, agender, which is associating with no gender at all, and bigender, so someone who identifies as two genders. Um, Gender concepts are learned from a very young age, wherein children use gender basically as a basis for understanding not only themselves but those around them. So this means our interests, clothing, mannerisms, hairstyles, again, for example, as are seen as being gender specific, and these assumptions and views are guided from birth through adulthood. So this leads us to biases about self-expression and gender identity, which can be difficult to alter later on in life, especially among those who may not have been exposed um, to people who are different from them, where they're always seeing males in male roles and females in female roles. So this starts from infancy when we inadvertently learn about gender through observation of appearances, activities, and behaviors of family, such as, mom and grandma is a female, dad, grandpa, whomever is a male, things like that, and what that exactly means. So, by 5 or 6 years of age, children hold the most rigid beliefs about what each gender can wear, how they behave, and these turn into stereotypes, which can refer to play, such as boys play with trucks and balls, and girls play with dolls, and wear dresses or help grandma bake cookies or clean the house. Um, Also, traits such as boys are tough and don't cry, and girls are emotional, which can also extend to occupations because some people believe that men can be doctors and women can't, or only women should be nurses and men shouldn't be. So I found it interesting with these two books pictured here. Jack Not Jackie is about Susan, who can't wait until her younger sister grows up so they can do girly things like play forest fairies. And she realizes that her sister isn't interested in that at all. Um, she wants to wear dresses. She doesn't want to have long hair, things like that. And then in Jacob's New Dress, a boy named Jacob, he loves doing dress up and he wants to wear dresses, but his classmates say that he can't do that because those are girl things. So um, it's important to understand that society automatically creates certain biases from our exposures or lack of exposures, which can have lifelong consequences that surround them and perpetuate misunderstandings. So our text points out, and it's imperative to note that research indicates transgender and gender nonconforming youth who are supported in their identity do not have higher rates of depression or anxiety when compared to control groups. However, the ones who are unsupported are those who exhibit increased symptoms and risk factors relating to their mental health. So, education and understanding helps alleviate negative connotations from things that we're unfamiliar with and cultivates acceptance. So, addressing violence through the lens of gender identity is crucial. Now, although there are multiple gender identities, my focus is on the transgender community as this is a group that's habitually misrepresented in the media. Transgender and gender expansive individuals face scrutiny and are under increased risk of violence. So it's essential to know that familiar transgender personalities such as Caitlyn Jenner, seen here, um, as well as Jazz from the TV show I Am Jazz, who comes from an upper middle class family, these should not be considered as norms for transgender individuals, despite the fact that they're often seen in the media. The heightened stigma and discrimination can lead to lower access to resources. So it's important to focus on the violence, which is pointed out here. Trans people are regularly those who experience high levels of trauma, mistreatment, harassment, and violence, whether that's verbal or physical. And organizations, unfortunately, largely focus on violence against cisgender women. So this ultimately overlooks the risks that are associated with being transgender or non-binary. Um, Examples of misrepresentation in the media related to gender identity, specifically those who are transgender, is certainly well known. The bathroom predator myth, which is fear mongering about transgender people, especially trans women. Basically, it's where people think that they are a threat to cisgender women or children in public restrooms. So, despite a lack of any evidence, this topic is widely publicized and continues to assert that trans women are basically predators to cisgender women in restrooms, which I have never encountered an issue personally, and I don't know of anyone who has either. So, also during Trump's presidential campaign, he stated that children were obtaining gender altering surgeries at school, basically for shock value in the media. We know they do not perform surgery at school, so how could this be? But unfortunately, people run with that type of thing because they hear it from someone who's in a high power position in the media and it's perpetuated. And then as president, he and his administration continue to rally against these gender groups. There was an executive order recently where he restricted access to gender affirming medical care for transgender people, um, and cutting off treatment for those in that group. So it's important to note also that on February 4th of this year, the ACLU, or the American Civil Liberties Union of Maryland, did sue the administration to attempt to block this discrimination and this behavior. So there are innumerable nonprofit organizations who have been ordered also to cease support for these communities with their funding eliminated. So that's another cause for concern. Another misconception is transitioning. Um, Not everybody alters their body. Not everyone transitions in this way ever, and they don't always intend to. So social transition may involve their presentation, their name, the pronouns that they use, um, but these things are becoming more common also. So some people may undergo physical or medical transitions. They might change their appearance, but not everybody does. And certainly everybody doesn't have access to the money that's necessary to, alter their gender, nor do they necessarily want to. So it's important to consider that many prominent non-binary identities from cultures around the world prelude modern portrayals of gender, especially in the United States, which has historically been two-gendered, being that male or female. And many of the stereotypes are strong because we do emphasize gender in our culture. So, ways in which we define sexual orientation and gender vary from cultures, from one to the next, and hopefully, as younger generations educate themselves, encouraging acceptance and things like that, with knowledge, hopefully the misunderstandings about gender identities will dissipate. So finally, here are my references. Thank you.